All right, hi guys. Today I am going to try to walk you through how to finish setting up your graphs, your spreadsheets, and your Google Sheets to do your exponential equations. So here is where we left off. You guys, if you opened up your Google Sheets, you should have that tab where you did linear equations. And we did y equals mx plus b, and I'm pretty sure we had done 3 and 1 for the slope and the y-intercept, and you had it so that you had a line and that you might have been playing around with different slopes and y-intercepts and x's, but this is what your first tab should look like. I don't have my cool screen capture software working, so I'm going to have to do this on regular old pen and paper right now just to show you some printouts of what your screen is going to look like. But down at the bottom down here somewhere, we should have some spots where you can make a new tab. If you haven't done this already, there should be a tab down there called that we called linear equations. And next to it, maybe on the left, there should be a little plus button that you can press to make a new tab on your spreadsheet on the bottom. So we make a new sheet in there. So if you press that, it should pop up with a new blank sheet for you. And if you already started this, then I'm going to have you kind of adjust what we had started. So let me show you the overall look of what we're trying to get to at the end. At the end, we want to be able to make a graph that's really similar to our linear equations, that's going to be exponential. That's going to look like it's going down, 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 but will never reach 0. Do you see how these little dots are showing that? Now, it kind of looks like those dots are on 0, right? It's because they get super, super close, and the dots are actually so wide that it looks like it hits 0, but they really don't. Like if you look at the values down here, they get closer and closer to 0, but never really hit it. That's what we want at the end. So let me show you the process of walking through to be able to make that. Okay, in your spreadsheet, I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can take a minute and you can set this up. All right, this will take a minute for you to be able to start typing this in, and you can pause this in a minute if you need to. But what we want to do is we want to type in the general form of the equation. So y equals a times b to the x, right? That's our general form. And then if we're talking about a growth rate, exponential growth or exponential decay, we're looking at y equals a times 1 plus r to the x. Or if it's decaying, it would be 1 minus r to the x. What we're going to do is just use 1 plus r, and then if we are decaying, we'll just make this rate a negative number, and it'll be like 1 minus. So we can take care of it all there. So type those guys in. And I'm going to have you go ahead and get it set up like this also. We want our A to be our y-intercept or our starting value. So I'm going to have you type that in. I'm going to have you type in that the R in here is the growth rate or decay rate as a decimal. And then these guys over here, do you remember that you're going to shade them in? You're going to fill them in with a color. So take a minute right now and just set up those 4 boxes and get these shaded in. Pause it so that you can see that screen, and then start up when you're ready to do the next thing. Okay, so you've got everything set up there. I picked 500 as a starting value because I'm going to pretend we're dealing with money. And let's give ourselves an interest rate. I picked this. What percentage would that be? Yeah, that's 5%, so 0.05. So let's say we've got $500 in the bank and we're getting an interest rate of 5%. We're going to calculate that and see what our graph looks like. So go ahead and put those guys in there and we can change them. Remember, those colored ones are the only boxes that we're going to change later. So if I put in some x values, remember last time we did this where we put in a value and we told it to add 1 each time, and then we copied that down? Well, I'm going to start with a -5. We've been starting when we were doing this with like -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So let's go down a few more and go ahead and make this box right under the y. Make that box filled in, so you can color that in with the fill, and type in a -5. And then when that's done, and here's the step-by-step part, click on the box underneath, type in equals, and then see where it says A8? That's because I clicked on this -5 box, and then I just typed in +1. And then you could hit enter, and it should give you a -4 in that box. So if you need to rewatch that again to hear it, do that. After you've got that in there and you hit enter, then you should be able to grab that -4. If you click on it, it has this box in the corner. Do you remember how we grabbed on that box and we pulled everything down to copy that formula? So if you do that and then let go, it should pull up adding 1 each time. And I just pulled it down so that I only went up to 5. You don't need to go ridiculous amounts and pull it up way all the way down to the bottom. Just get yourself to like a -5 to a +5. When we're done with that, then we are totally set up to tell it how to calculate our equation, how to calculate the y value. So this is where we've got to do a lot of clicking on things, and this is where you're going to want to listen really, really carefully. Okay, go ahead and click your cursor on this button, the box right underneath the y, and we're going to put in an equals. So go ahead and type in equals, and now we have to tell it what it is going to equal. So our equation was a times 1 plus r to the x. So we want to click on our a. Where's our a? This box right here. You're going to click on that box, and then you're going to type in times, which is that star key above the 8, and then you're going to put parentheses 1 plus, and then you click on your r. Where's our r? Click on this guy, and then you end your parentheses. You make the little caret to the, that's over the 6, and then your x is this x box right next to it. You're going to click on that. Let me show you what that formula ends up looking like. Can you see it right here? If you're using the same ones as me, mine was B4 times parentheses 1 plus, and then this B5, end parentheses, to the, that's the caret, this guy, A8. And when I hit enter, then it's going to calculate this value. It should put 391 point something in that box for you. Okay. Now, the problem is that we can't just copy that one all the way down. The problem is that we need to lock in these values. You remember how we did that before? We always wanted to use those same ones. So here's where you might have to double click back on that box, and you have to enter in. What are those things? Do you remember? They're dollar signs. So you're going to enter in a dollar sign in front of the B and the 4 to keep the B4 locked, and in front of the B and the 5 to keep the B5 locked. Here's what it looks like really big. Dollar sign B, dollar sign 4, times with the star, parentheses, 1 plus, dollar sign B, dollar sign 5, and the parentheses, to the, and then it was still our A8 cell. We didn't mess with that. So that's what your formula should be, with that equals in front in that box. And if you've got that and you hit enter and it's still this 391, you're ready to move on and you're ready to copy. So pause it if you need to. If you're ready, we'll look at the next one. At that point, you're going to have this little box in the corner. When you click on it again, that you can take it and drag it all the way down, and it's going to copy your equation so that it calculates all of these for you. Now, guys, does it make sense for us to really have a negative amount of time for these? That's what we have, but does it make sense logistically? You have $500. Are we going to go back in time and start taking money away right there? No. So for this kind of exponential growth, really the earliest amount of time we're used to is just 1, or it's 0. At time 0, we've got $500. So here's the point where if you want to, you can go and play with this number right here, and you could just change that guy to 0 if you want. And then it's going to change all these other ones so that you can actually see the growth, and it would get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger every time. Right? If I leave it like this, though, and I'm ready to see my graph and get my x and my y graph in there, this is the point where you click on here and you just drag your cursor so that you're highlighting with your cursor your whole table right there. You're not trying to fill it in with color. You're just grabbing it so that it's highlighted by your cursor. And then you're going up to the button that was the chart button. Remember, it looked like the picture, like a bar graph, I think, at the top. And this chart editor is what comes up. And you're going to pick the one that says this y versus x, that's all these dots. It might even be highlighted for you when it comes up. All the ones with the dots like this, because it's not a straight line, the best thing we can do is get points. And go ahead and insert it. So, and it should pop up on your graph as something like this. If it's in the way, you might have to move it. If it comes over here, you can just drag it and click it over to this area. Okay. And that's going to be able to show us our growth right here. Now, it's only curvy just a little bit because our scale is different, and yours might have popped up with a different scale right here. I've got mine. You can double click on these and double click on these to set the scale again. I've got mine going from -10 to 10 and 0 to $600 because it kind of goes to about $600 there. But we could change that. This isn't growing very much. If you want to see a curve that gets higher quicker, what are you going to change? We're going to make a higher rate. So you can play with this now at this point and say, well, give yourself like 25% interest, some crazy amount of interest that the banks would never really pay you. Do 0.25 and see what happens to your curve. Put in $1,000 at the beginning and see what happens to your curve. And if it doesn't look curve-like, you might want to set these axes to be different values. But that's basically all we've got. Here would be, oh, here I was playing around. Here was my 0.25, 25% interest. Definitely getting higher quicker right there. What if you wanted to do some decay? If we wanted to have a negative value, let's say we're losing money or we are losing value for some purchase that was originally $500, all we need to do is make this number negative for it to be this 1 minus r kind of thing. So if you put in a negative number like negative 0.25, then do you see our exponential decay? Then we see it happening. It starts big and it's going to get really, really, really small. And if I extended it, it would get closer and closer to 0 but never hit. All right, there's your instructions for how to set up your exponential graph. If you need to, you can pause this, you can rewind it, you can look at it and go back to set it so that yours have those same functions that mine did to be able to graph that exponential growth or exponential decay.